Well, hey there, everyone, or idiots, I suppose. Let me know if you can hear me. I think that the microphone should be up and running, and no promises as to whether or not it will stay that way. Boy, the few of you that are here probably have notifications on because this was an unannounced live stream. And I wanted to be able to do this because I wanted to be able to get some stuff out to you today. And I have some really fun announcements that are going to be applied directly to the channel. Real quick, just so you know, I have received the applications for the moderator positions. I will be working through those this week. Until then, my wife is still going to be doing the moderating from my other channel. So as always, please be respectful in the comments section. This isn't here to spread hate. This is here to have a good time and maybe learn some stuff. But I honestly just put the wig on for the funsies of the thumbnail. And also, I got it, so I might as well wear it. So what would you think if this was the look that I had with like a baseball cap and hair all the time rather than just the straight bald head that I am stuck with naturally? I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it works out okay. It looks a little bit better with the hat on. If I take the hat off, it gets a little nuts, a little crazy, but screw it. Speaking of the hat, the big thing here that I was wanting to be able to talk about is that I have released some new merch. I had spent a lot of time trying to design this up, and it's called the 7 Emotions merch. And it comes across a various number of ways. There's one that has this like observe logo, and it's really hard to see from back here, but it says observe, right? And then on the inside of it, it has this pattern, which you might be able to see. Maybe it's a little hard to see. So this is the 7 Emotions merch. It's a repeating pattern, or in this sort of thing, and then some other options as well. But it's all centered around the 7 universal emotions that everybody has, and it's in little emoji forms. And there's it's a hoodie, or not a hoodie, a sweatshirt, right? Sweatshirt, just everyday unisex one, works for everybody. Quite soft. You also can get a much more subtle patterned one of just a t-shirt here. And this, I was so shocked with how soft this actually is. I was kind of pessimistic about it because with some of these companies that you work through, the material's pretty terrible. But this one wasn't. I was really happy. So this is a very subtle one. You can get it in all different colors, everything like that. Also, thank you so much for the donations for everybody who does decide to. I really appreciate it. And when I get around to answering some questions later on, that'll be my primary way of seeing it. And I'm glad, Kathy, that you like the wig. I like it as well. It's one of many. I have like 3, but it's one of 3, and they go in various lengths. But I'm glad you like it, and thank you for the donation. But yeah, anyways, this merch here, I worked a long time on trying to figure out something that I would not only be comfortable wearing out in public, but that it wouldn't be too ostentatious. And it still applied to the channel. And sure enough, it also comes in sweatpant form as well. So I tried to make these line up pretty close, but the shop that I work through, the colors are slightly off, so they don't work as a full outfit, and also the emojis are the wrong size. Let's see here. I'm going to look over at the chat here. I've got it going on slow chat today so that I can hopefully keep up. There's no switching of screens or anything like that, so everything should work pretty cleanly. So let's see here. Let's get on into this. From Maria Elias, should we still donate for a new microphone? You don't have to donate for anything. I am planning on getting a new microphone, but I have to figure out the best situation for the studio that I'm in, because if I don't use something like this, it sounds pretty echoey, but I really don't like lav microphones, so I'm trying to figure out a good way around that, be it with like perhaps a shotgun microphone or something like that. For those of you who are interested in film stuff, it's a very tedious part of it. A lot of people liking the hair. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that it comes across okay. I would have loved to have been able to grow this much hair when I was younger, but I was not blessed with that gene. My hair started falling out quite fast as soon as I hit college years and stopped sleeping and a lot of stress and all that. So yeah, kind of rocking a Beatle look. Yeah, sort of, right? No, I just decided to wear some of the merch that I was going to talk about. I'm really honestly super excited about the merch itself. I'm also going to come up with a line that has just the 7 emotions just in a string across, and maybe with some other things playing in here and there as well. Conditioner fund then, yes. I don't know exactly how to take care of these wigs, so they just stay in like little Ziplocs out of the way or just on the floor, which is not great. So thank you for that, Tanana Bread. It's good to see you here. And then also Julia Sutton, thank you for your donation. And thanks for being my current binge channel and catching up on everything I've been missing. There's a lot that you've probably missed. And actually speaking on that, I'm going to be going back through some of the older videos that I did way back in the day, earlier on in my studies, and readdressing them, talking about where the research has changed and just upping the quality. And I hope to be able to start the base ground. That was my phone. Hopefully it's not broken. It's not. Cool. Start the base ground for starting a coursework for people who want to be able to start into this and work through this. But there's also a huge partnership that I've got coming up here. I need to hash out the details for it, and then I will be able to give you the full, all the details on it as soon as I can here. But it's enormously beneficial to you if you're interested in what I'm doing and how to start on this career path, and maybe like finances or something like that is a difficulty, or direction is a difficulty. I have one of my favorite and probably life-achieving partnerships coming up here that I'll be able to talk about with you in regards to that. I'm very excited about it, so I hope that a lot of you might be able to stick around and see that. Like I said, I can't really talk about it quite yet because I don't have the exact details of it finished, but it's coming out really, really soon, and I'm very excited. It should be a good time. I'm going to go ahead and start I'm going to start reading some comments. If you have any questions in regards to more or less anything, this is going to be that time. And once again, if you do like the look of this sort of merch stuff, I'll put it up here so that people can see it. If you do like that sort of stuff, just head over to the link in the description below. I used to have 2 shops. I made the one patron only, so some of the old original designs that were on there are now only available on Patreon, which is no big deal. I think that will work out quite well for them, but then I've got a lot of new stuff up there as well. I'm going to put my hat back on because why not, right? Why not just complete the look sort of thing? All right, this is my undercover look, I guess. Let's go ahead and start responding to some comments. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to make sure that your question is answered, Super Chat is the way to go about that. So thank you so much in advance. And let's go ahead and dive into these questions. From Kaylee, this is the one that's right down at the bottom. How are you doing today? You know, Kaylee, I have to be honest. Today I was dragging my feet a fair bit. Allergies are kicking in my area, and they always just zap it right out of me. But I had a lot of work that I had to get done today, and I was a little bit drained. But I like these live streams. They make it to where I can still interact with you, and it makes a little bit lighter workload on me. So that's kind of how the day's been going. I've had a couple cups of coffee and things have been overall okay. So thank you for checking in. I appreciate it. Down here from Indiana Jones, that wig belongs in a museum. Sorry. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to pronounce the, you know what? Something Bunny Skipwith. Morning, Logan, watching from Australia. It's morning there. Wow, it is 5:30 in the evening here. I was planning on starting this stream an hour ago, but I was so busy working that I couldn't get around to it. So good morning. I hope that your day goes just absolutely stunning for the rest of the day, as best as it possibly can. I hope that happens for you. Let's see here. Alexandra Blaze, I believe. What do you think will happen with James Charles? I am not dead positive. I will say that he's very young, and to have a person's entire life shut down that early can be harsh. That being said, I really don't like the accusations that are directed towards him, and I don't know that they're given a lot of attention right now, and it's curious to me as to why. If they're true, then that's just not, it's not really okay in my mind. But also I could think back to when I was 21, and I know that I wasn't a super smart person at the time, but I'm also a vastly different person now than I was then as well. So it's hard to say. I really don't appreciate that entire situation. I don't think that if what he is doing is accurate and what I read was accurate, I really don't approve of that. And I hope that the legal system works correctly in regards to that. I hope that makes sense. Good question. All right. It's from Jenny Bergerson. Thanks to you, I have beginning to observe and study my family's body and face language, and now I can see when they lie to me watching from Sweden. Well, first, it's nice to hear from you from Sweden. I hope it's delightful there. It's actually a really nice day here weather-wise, so I hope it is there as well. And then as far as that goes, I'm glad that you're able to watch and pay attention more. I don't know. I suppose my biggest thing that I always just remind people of who are really getting into this, because it's super exciting. It is super exciting starting off into it and starting to pick up on all these things. The biggest thing that's difficult, and I had to remind myself of often, was that it's not good to become cynical towards people. It's very, very easy while studying nonverbal communication to become cynical or suspicious and not trust people very well. And that isn't super great. It kind of can design this island complex for you to where you feel very, very separated from everybody. And that isn't super fun. That's where I ended up going when I first started studying years and years ago. And it just isn't super beneficial. But it is still good to know. It is good to keep informed. And I hope that you're able to learn some of the things that add richness to your own life, as well as being able to help other people add richness to their lives as well. So thank you for that comment. I really do appreciate you watching from Sweden, and thank you for studying this stuff. I really, really hope that more and more people appreciate body language reading more and more. Let's see here. I'm going to go through and catch up on any super chats that may or may not have come in. All right, from Kim Nicole Rush, the hair really suits you, Logan. Thank you. I'm glad. I don't know. I think it's okay. And I wasn't really sure. And my wife really wasn't sure. She's known me with only very short hair. I had hair when we first met, but it was short then and quickly disappearing. And then I shaved my head bald. So it was just like constantly that. So it very, very interesting shock for her and for me as well. But I think it does okay, right? I think my face shape is okay for it, which I'm glad, because like bald also works okay. It's such a stark contrast. But I could also just go with the little bit more manageable one that's not as intense, but I could like go a little bit more edgy with it, you know? There we go. Now I'm like edgier, but I kind of have a haircut too. The other one's somewhere else in the house. I don't know where it's at. So there we go. But I'm glad that the hair works okay. Let's see here. From Nicole Ernst Boris. Hi, Logan. Great channel and best wishes. Well, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. And best wishes back to you wherever you are in the world. I've been putting a lot of work into this channel, and there's so much that I have planned to be able to start implementing here soon, especially with, like I said, some of these new partnerships that are coming up. So you have a lot of really good content, in my opinion, hopefully coming out to you soon. So hopefully you appreciate that coming out here in a bit. All right, from Jesse Arcana. Thank you for the donation. And watching your vids has helped me master the board games Secret Hitler, a deception board game. Do you ever play those deception-based board games? So fun. That is an interesting title. Really interesting title. No, I have never played that game, and I don't often play games that require deception detection. Oftentimes, people don't want to just because they hear that I do this stuff. And even though I try to ignore that side of things as much as possible while playing games, it still leaks over, and a lot of people don't want to play games with the person that does the body language stuff when it has to do with deception detection. So things like poker or any of those like catch a lie kind of games, I don't get to play often. So, but I would love to. It would be fun, but I just don't. So, but cool. I'm glad that it's helping you out. I'm glad that it's helping you get ahead on some games there. Let's see here. I'm going to make sure that I'm all caught up. I'm not even close to caught up. Hold on a second here. Here we go. From Kabubuto, I hope. First, thank you for the donation. Would you consider doing a read on someone who has social anxiety? How would that affect a reading? That would be part of my baseline process, the establishing of the baseline, which not a lot of nonverbal communication specialists will talk about this. And I really feel like it's a fundamental part of an essentially accurate read is to establish that baseline. So yes, and as a person who has social anxiety, which is odd to be doing this with having that sort of issue, it is different and it can get more difficult to read because oftentimes it's accompanied by anxious or agitated tells, which are spikes in what would be a normal baseline. And so that can be more difficult. I hope to be able to start discussing various neurotypes on the channel and how they display non-verbally, not only so that you can understand perhaps you have a neurotype that you would just be curious about how it functions and how it displays, but then also for the purpose of research and being able to better help doctors understand patients, better help law enforcement, better understand the people that they're interrogating, so on and so forth. I think it would be really, really handy, and that's something that I have planned for the future, but there's a lot of things that I have to get aligned before I can do that effectively. One of those is to be able to move to an actual brick and mortar building that would be centered around that research. I'm already getting that started on being able to have facilities that are designed around researching and exemplifying more or less nonverbal communication, how it works, and that would be part of that. So that is in the works, and I will be doing stuff like that, but there's just some things that I have to get moving around. So thank you for the donation, and I hope that answers your question. From Miss Movira, something like that, thank you for your donation. I'm sensitive to people's emotions and having a hard time not feeling too much. Suggestions on not letting it affect me so badly. So this strays into psychology a bit, and I know some about psychology, but I am not a psychologist. There are areas that I have studied in psychology because it's so closely related to nonverbal communication, but I am not a psychologist. So this part would just be from me speaking as a human to you, things that help me better understand things. And I have to be honest, I have difficulty relating to people's emotions. A lot of disconnect there for me. And that's part of what's spurred on my research into nonverbal communication. So from what I understand, once again, I'm just really not the best person for this. But from my limited understanding, from my very limited understanding, and please take this with a grain of salt, what's helped me in the past is trying to take a third-person perspective while in the moment itself and looking at me in relation to them and what's going on, and taking that third-person perspective, even just mentally running through it, being like, you know what, I'm looking down at this situation, what's going on, and the emotions being felt. That separation helps me better understand the emotions that I'm feeling, and then also helps me understand how their emotions relate to me in a way that doesn't feel as overbearing. This mindset of being able to be elevated above a situation helps you even psychologically work down from perhaps being overwhelmed with another person's emotion. Along with that, another thing that I practice, which once again, I am not a psychologist and I am not suggesting this in any professional realm. This is just me talking to you. Another thing that I ended up doing and still do is portraying my body language in a way that helps my brain follow along with that. So if I'm feeling very, very stressed, instead of feeding into that by doing more agitated gestures and so on and so forth, that would flow naturally from it, I try to divert that. So instead of, say, I start getting stressed and I start bouncing my legs, or I start fidgeting with something, or doing some self-soothing gestures or anything like that, I try to collect and keep my hands still, keep my feet still, concentrate on my breathing, and then that physical action helps my mental state follow along in line with that. Once again, for a final time, not a professional advice, in no way. This is just my things that I do. So I hope that helps you a little bit. I'm sorry if it doesn't. I'm sure there are people that are far more qualified to be able to help you in those sorts of situations than I am. That's just my tips for that. I hope you appreciate that. And thank you for the donation. I really do appreciate that too. From M. Nash, thank you for the donation. I greatly appreciate it. And if you have a question, I'll see if I can read it somehow, see it. Let's see here. Excuse me. From Emma Ryan, I've started watching Lie to Me because of you. Good show. How much of it is correct/accurate according to your study? Love from Australia. Another person from Australia. Good show. Lie to Me is a really good show. And I've heard some weird rumors about how it was shut down because it wasn't an accurate science. It wasn't shut down because of that. The issue that they ran into were actor and actresses issues. And then also there is a limit to what you can create in a show, ergo it's cut off quite briefly. But as far as the science behind it goes, the idea of the science behind it is quite good. It's quite solid. It's based off of Paul Ekman, who is a doctor and has his PhD, I believe, in psychology, but he was also a pioneer of understanding the universal aspects of human emotion and the microexpression. He's the leading researcher in the field right now. Like, he still is, and his work is very, very good. A little dry to read, but very, very good. So it's based off of him. But since real life is rarely as entertaining or dynamic as the movies or shows are, they had to take some embellishments with it. So Cal will be able to read some things and say concretely, like, oh, this obviously means this, or he obviously is lying, and so on and so forth. And it's almost never that way. There's always gray areas that you have to work around. And that's because nonverbal communication, the science itself, is based off of the human mind. So since we don't understand how the human mind fully functions, what it is comprised of, what makes a human mind, and the brain, and all that, there's still some limits to it. So what Lie to Me more or less did was take the limitations of nonverbal communication and just take them out and make it to where it could be a black and white science. And that is more entertaining to watch for sure, but it also is just a little bit less accurate. So if it was more accurate, he wouldn't be able to have as many concrete things, and there would be a lot more inter-branch work. So instead of it just being nonverbal communication only, and they get all this stuff from it, there would also be linguists, there would also be profilers, and so on and so forth that would help get to this point. But instead, they have to make it interesting somehow. So I hope that makes sense. I do suggest you continue watching the series. It's excellent, and at very least, it's very inspirational to continue studying. Has been for me, so that would be my thoughts on it. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the question and the donation. All right, from Coco Paws. Something looks off. Did you get new shoes or something? No, it's my nail polish, actually. I hope you noticed it. I'm glad you did, and that's the only thing that's off right now. Thank you for the donation, Coco Paws. All right, I've got to make sure that I get to all the correct stuff here. All right, I think I'm getting caught back up from Daring D's Dauntless Detours. Very well done. Thank you for the donation. Just want to say I love your channel. Thanks for sharing your nonverbal analysis with us. Special thanks to your wife for sharing you with us. Yeah, Des, probably Des, right? From New Jersey. I hope New Jersey weather is doing well as well. Montana weather is fantastic right now. And I'm glad that you like the channel. I put a lot of work into it, a lot of time into it. So I'm glad that it comes out in my content somewhat. And there is going to be a lot more content coming out. Because here's the thing. I don't want to just dig a rut into only doing the nonverbal analysis and nothing else. And then somewhere down the line, once people are bored of nonverbal analysis, well, then my career is gone in this specific line. So I don't want to do that. Oh, hold on. There was an alarm on my phone. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to dig myself into that corner. So I'm going to be adding more research style stuff, speaking to more experts, some more fun, engaging things like perhaps a polygraph machine versus a nonverbal analyst, so on and so forth, like really fun things like that, just to be able to add some richness to the channel. So that will be coming out, but I'm glad you're appreciating what is coming out right now. And I owe a lot of gratitude to my wife for the amount of patience that she has in regards to this. This is a very all-encompassing job. I work anywhere between 70 and 90 hours a week, and that's a lot of time. That's just not being able to spending quality time with her or the dogs or anything like that. So a lot of gratitude to her for that, and also to you for allowing me to do this as a job, which is very good. It's a very nice job. But thank you for the donation as well. And then from Twinuality, yeah. Thank you for your donation. And I always get so happy when you upload or go live. Well, I'm glad. And I try to keep uploading regularly. I am going to be regularly keeping up with 2 uploads a week, optimistically. If it's ever too busy or I'm not feeling well, I'll probably do a live and upload or something like that. But twice a week, I try to get out to you with some form of content. And I'm glad it makes you happy. I'm glad it makes your day a little bit better. I know that live streams really help my day go a lot better as well. It's very nice to be able to actually interact with you on some level, apart from just sitting down and recording and editing and looking through occasional comments, because that's about all that I'm limited to other than that. So thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you again for the donation. Let's see here. From James B. What's your favorite read that you've done? I've done a lot, and they get blurry for me after a bit because I just churn through so much content. I did really like the work that I did on the Amanda Knox read stuff, just being able to include all of that, and then also discussing some of the limitations that the lead prosecutor had, which if you haven't watched that, I have no respect for the lead prosecutor during the Amanda Knox case. You can go watch the videos and see why. But I think that was one of my favorites, but it's really honestly hard for me to be able to pick a favorite, largely because I just really actually enjoy doing the nonverbal analysis regardless of who it's about. So favorite one is difficult to pick. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the donation, James. From Ali Z, thank you for your donation. Would you consider covering the R. Kelly interview? That was something that I was gonna do a while ago, actually. Like a long while ago, I was considering doing the R. Kelly one. I even had started doing some research for it back when that was part of the current times kind of thing, things that were happening right away. And then I never got around to it. The time passed for it. And that was back when I was trying to work a full-time job outside of YouTube and then also work YouTube full-time, and it was just too messy. And so I never got around to it, and I don't know if it's popular enough now to get around to it, but I might. I really might, especially if enough people ask for it, then I'll be able to get around to it. Thank you for your donation, Ali. All right, let's get to the correct spots here. From Ms. Mavira again, thank you so much. Thank you, and it's greatly appreciated. Well, thank you. A louder thank you. My thank you is louder right now to make up for the fact that you donated again. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your donation. And then down here from AL3891. Isn't that Elon Musk's kid's name? Anyway, great channel, but please stop with the clickbait titles. At least put the subject at the start. No, I don't really want to do that because I have to make it interesting for people who would not in any way be interested in it. So I know that you probably want me to change that around, but I can't. It's part of the marketing strategy that I have to be able to continue moving forward. That's just the way. It's just the way that it's going to be. So I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but that's where I'm going with it. So, and also they're not clickbaity. I react to certain people's stuff, so I put that in the title. Just because I capitalize react and then find an adjective for what I thought their interview or stuff was like, then I don't think that makes it clickbait. Anyway, thank you for the donation. From Ria's main event. My son has Asperger's. Do you think studying body language would help him connect better? It could possibly do that. That's part of another idea that I've been working on. I want to be able to create a series of courses for various people in various positions, both wanting to be able to read better, understand themselves better, so on and so forth, with various different neurotypes involved. But I want to be able to get more specialists in various fields involved in that before I create and kind of flesh out this course. Or series of courses. So I think it could be very helpful for him or them, for him to be able to understand, because it can clear up a lot of stuff, perhaps just on the surface value of things. But there are going to be limitations to what you can find on the internet. For instance, right now, anything that you find on YouTube is going to be pretty mellow. It's going to be a little bit watered down just because of the nature of YouTube content. You can't really go into full in-depth educational dry, cut and dry kind of content because nobody would watch. But I think it would be beneficial. It wouldn't hurt, that's for sure. I just don't know to the extent of the benefit, especially depending on the course that you get. So I hope that makes sense, and thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Down here from Paulina Henrykowska. I hope I got that close. Thank you so much for your donation. I really greatly appreciate it. And then you're doing such a great job. I really love your channel. Greetings from Poland. Well, I hope Poland is lovely at this time of day or night. I'm not sure what time it is there. I'm glad you like the channel, and I'll continue to try to make stuff that you appreciate on it. All right, from Riley Ward. I'm curious about your thoughts on Sydney Flood's comment on DID above mine somewhere in the chat. I have not seen. Oh, wait, hold on. Hello, I have dissociative identity disorder, and I was wondering how you think analyzing someone who has this disorder may maybe differ from someone who doesn't. I'd be curious to see how it would be. That's a great question, and this is one of the ones that I would like to be able to include because I haven't been able to work with it extensively. Most of anything that I have in relation to people with DID is research-based, just like reading articles or college bookwork, so on and so forth. I would like to be able to start creating something around that because I'm curious. Does it stray baseline to baseline? Like, is it a baseline for each specific persona? Like, how does it work? How does it play out? I would love to be able to know. So I don't know right now. It's just processing through it, how DID works, and how baselines and nonverbal communication works. It very well could be an individual baseline needed to be established for each individual deal there. And I'm just not sure. I really don't have a great answer for you right now because I haven't been able to go down that path nearly extensively enough. So good question. I do have plans for that in the future, as well as people who are on the spectrum and any other neurodiversities, perhaps people with like, how does a person with sociopathy express as opposed to somebody with psychopathy, so on and so forth. Like, I want to be able to get all of these different neurodiversities in there non-verbally so that people can use it as reference points, as learning points, so on and so forth. And it doesn't exist right now. So great question. I appreciate the donation, and I will get back to you on that eventually in the future. So Riley, thank you for the donation. And Sydney, thank you for the comment. I hope that makes sense. From Mrs. Pokets, The Riot. From The Riot, thank you for your donation. Would you like me to mod again, or are things going well this live? If you would like to be able to mod again, just go ahead and send me your email with your little background history thing. I'm running through those this week to be able to get everything figured out. Before, I had some difficulties with some people bringing things to light to me about various aspects of stuff. And long story short, I need to be responsible with who I have in control of portions of my channel, and that is done through me being able to get to know the person a little bit better than just frantically clicking go ahead on a live stream. So if you would like to be able to do that and you haven't already, go ahead and email your resume to observe.contact@gmail.com, and I will be able to look through. I don't know how many moderators I'm going to appoint, but I am going to appoint a few, and we'll just work from there. So if you would like to, please feel free to send that on over. No offense, trust me, no offense to anybody that's involved in this. I just know that with my size of following, I have to be responsible with it because anybody can get canceled for any reason, and I don't want to give any reason for that. So if that makes sense. Thank you for the donation, by the way. From Jesse Arcana, thank you for your donation. Your titles are not clickbait, for the record. My first vid click or for your vids was because of the title. You got to do your thing. Keep up the amazing content. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really don't try to do clickbait titles. I do try to make them intriguing, and I have to find a balance because in my mind, with my research side and the analytical side of me, I would rather just be like, nonverbal analyst reacting or analyzing blah, blah, blah. But not many people click on that, and titles and thumbnails are what you see, so you have to be engaged by that. So I have to find a way to make it interesting. Otherwise, nobody's going to research it because this is, to be very frank, a research field. It's a study field. And I make it entertaining so that people can see it and understand that this study exists and it can enrich their lives and so on and so forth. But nobody's going to go out there and look for an educational article on it by themselves. It's too niche. It's too small. So I have to figure out a way, right? So I appreciate it. I'm glad that you like the content, and thank you for the support on that, by the way. Let's scooch on down here to, hold on, down here with, I don't know. Immortal, I see that on there. Thank you for your donation. Are you the kind of person who starts watching a movie or reading a book and immediately knows how it's going to end? Most of the time, but on certain, it's more common for me to know the idea of how it's going to end than not. But I really enjoy just going along for the ride with like movies and cinema in general. I really try to just kind of glide along with it because I don't know, it's not as fun to go to a movie and just pick it apart, which I also have done a lot of film stuff, which is why the set looks the way it does and whatnot. So looking at it that way is frustrating for me because then I just see all that, or I just see the plot lines and the body language and so on and so forth. So I try to avoid it just to enjoy it, but sometimes it does happen. But books, not as much. Sometimes, especially if it's a very predictable kind of book style where it's like, yep, hero's going to somewhat win in the end. Cool. Game of Thrones wasn't that way, for instance, which I appreciated. A lot of plot twists and you didn't know what was going to happen. So that sort of stuff I appreciate. But that's a great question. Thank you. Didn't expect that. Thank you for the donation. Hey, from Tananana Bread again. Thank you for your donation again. I appreciate it. Have you ever had a profound aha moment during a read, like you just weren't really getting them, or you were uncertain, then they did or said something, and that was like, there it is. Okay, whew. Oh man, I'm tired today, so sorry if I stumble around on your words a lot. Also, reading is difficult for me. Yes, actually, that happens oftentimes during the research for the videos itself. Because for those of you who are curious, there are reads that I'll do that are completely detached, right? I've never seen the footage. I don't have any idea about the background, and I do that to be very unbiased. It comes with the sacrifice of not understanding some context of things. But as far as nonverbal aspect goes, it's unbiased. During those, it usually will just pop up during the actual read itself, but not necessarily. In the other ones, where I'm researching for like a case, something along those lines, then it will end up happening when I'm working through the footage for the first time to be able to see it. Because I try to look through the footage to be able to have an idea as to where it's going, even just dialogue-wise, where I need to start paying attention to more or less, but I don't analyze it fully until I get on screen. None of my stuff is scripted. Everything that you see is stuff that I'm observing, and then I tell you what I know from it. So it's not like I sit down and I hash out everything and I have everything mapped out and I know where it's going to be and I know what it's going to do. I have general ideas. So yes, oftentimes there will be a moment where I will be watching, especially if I'm like, I don't know what direction I'm supposed to go on this. For instance, I'll have a name, look into this, and then that's it. People don't want me to see if there's a lie somewhere or anything like that. They just want my opinion. And then they will go through and I'll be like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then I'll add that to a little repertoire that I have, a little collection of ideas, of concepts for various storylines that it could match up with. And then I'll go through and then it connects dots as I figure it out. And that's what you end up seeing on screen. It's a tedious process, to be sure, because I have to gather a lot of information to be able to make those dots connect correctly, because I just don't want to be reaching for stuff needlessly. But yeah, it does pop up here and there, and it's very, very nice to be able to have it pop up and be like, okay, I think I see what we've got going on here, and now I can build off of this, and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting idea and good question. Very good question. Let's see here. I was about to read it, and then it just flew away from me. From Kagome Pierce? Kagome? Kajome? I'm not sure. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. I really loved your read with Paris Hilton. When I've talked about my trauma, people have said they don't believe me because I'm cold when I mentioned that, or when I mention it. That read helped me understand why I'm like that. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of contention with people who say that people aren't acting normally, which I understand. I understand why they say that and blah, blah, blah. I get that. But the acting normally concept is slowly being torn down, and I think that's important. And that's why when I do reads, I try to base it off of specific baselines, because in my opinion, there's not really an acting normally. But I do get where that comes from and how that makes it easier for research and so on and so forth. So I'm glad that that helps you even just relate to people more. I'm not sure if that's the word that I'm looking for, but I'm glad it does help you on some level. I know that, for instance, for me, I have a number of various nonverbal tics and habits that if a person were to go in without establishing the baseline first, they would probably misread it as. And it happens regularly in comments and so on and so forth. So I'm really trying to establish this idea of, if you have to work on generalities, if you have to work on like the 7 universals and perhaps some of the general tells, you can. But really, if you want accuracy and you want reliability, it has to go down to a baseline. So I hope that makes sense. I'm glad that it helped you out. And thank you for the donation, and thank you for the support as well. Let's see here from ibagel.com too. All right. Thank you for your donation. I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you, actually. I'm just now realizing I was just looking at the color of it, and I was like, oh, but thank you. Seriously, thank you. My favorite color. So I would say my favorite color, if we're going to go with color, would be, it's changed over the years. I really like a few different ones, and I'll explain. So when I was really young, my go-to color was brown. I don't know why. It's really hard for me to explain, but with brown, there was a certain feeling that it invoked, and I just loved brown everything. And then as I got older, it was black, which I still like black a lot, but black's not a color. Black's just a shade. So if black's a color, then black is cool. But then I liked purple because, I don't know, I just liked the color, not too much to it. And now as it's switching around a little bit here, I wish there was a color in here that I could point to. But there's this more, not burgundy, but like a reddish, brownish, hard to explain sort of color that is a lighter pastel-y version of it that I really, really like as well in certain areas. But as for me, especially since I grew up with art, heavily influenced by art, I'm not really tied down to a specific color that I like a ton anymore. It's usually if it fits with what I'm working for or the emotion that I'm feeling, then I'll work with it. With that in mind, like my color diversity in my clothing alone has changed dramatically from several years ago, to where I have, like, my brightly colored patterned shirts would have never been in my repertoire earlier, and now they are. Just different color in general. I like color a lot now. So it's cool, and I appreciate the question. Very good question, and not one that I often answer anymore. So thank you. From Scottish Kitty, thank you for the donation. As someone who is autistic, your videos really help me to understand social cues a little better. I adore your channel, and I'll probably be binging it later this week when I get COVID dose 2. First, thank you for the donation. Thank you for enjoying the channel, and I'm glad that it's useful for you. I'm glad it's helping out some, and I hope it's at least fun to watch as well. Like I said earlier in this stream, I will be designing some videos that are centered around body language basics and building up from there, so we can have that establishing idea, especially if people want to either start studying it for a career or whatever, or if they just need it, they just want to be able to use it for their various everyday social interactions. I want to be able to have that, and I'll be starting that soon, probably here in the summer or something like that. But I'm glad that it helps, and good luck with that second dose. I had my second dose of the COVID vaccine, and the day of, I felt okay. It's pretty cool, pretty fine, everything like that. And then that night, I had a fever all night long. And at 3 in the morning, I woke up and went out to the kitchen to grab a snack, because we needed to take some Tylenol so that we could feel a little bit better, my wife and I did. And while I was out there, I threw up profusely into the garbage can. Very not fun time. I was so irritated. And then had fever throughout the rest of the night up until 6:30, and then slept from like 6:30 up until I think it was 9 or 10, and then woke up and just felt dead for the rest of the day. So hopefully that's not the track you're going down. Hopefully yours goes a little bit more gentle, but I hope at least my videos help. So thank you again for the donation. From Daring D, from DDDD, from Desiree, Des, I see that here. Also sent an email regarding the modding for you. Desiree, okay, from NG, or New Jersey. Weather in New Jersey is actually not bad. Rained all day. I love rain. Rain makes me happy. I'm glad, and I will keep my eye out for it. My wife and I are both going to be going through those just to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And I am not going to continue accepting mods after that, because if you've made it into this cut, then that's great. And I just don't want to have like 700,000 mods on my channel. I'm not that big. There's not a need for it. But I will keep my eye out for yours as well. And thank you for sending it in. And I'm glad that it was not bad, even though it rained all day. That could be good. All right. From the Riot, again, thank you again. I've wondered on the psychopathy versus sociopathy. I deal with psychopathy 1, and I don't have a personality disorder, so I wonder how it's different. Very fantastic question. Like I said, this is, nonverbal communication has been, it's only been around for a little bit here, right? A couple of decades, several decades, something like that. It's been around, but the study of it hasn't been. The earliest versions of it kind of came out with Charles Darwin. There were some sprinklings here and there before that, but Charles Darwin was the guy who really came up with the idea of the possibility of it. And then Paul Ekman really took that and ran with it. And he's still alive. So this is a very young science. So there's still a lot to be able to be added in, and more routes to be able to be taken, and more research to be able to be done. And the channel here is designed to help bring it into the light of the eye of the public, so to speak. So more people are now aware of it. Perhaps more people will be interested in it. More people will come into the field, better research, so on and so forth. So these things that I'm talking about, where I want to be able to create a log of how people function over various neurotypes, would be handy, in my opinion. And it's greatly lacking. As far as I can see from across college and across my own personal study, it was greatly lacking. So I would like to be able to see more of it done. And if I have to be one of the ones to do that, that would be great. And so eventually Observe, which will be established as a full research, interrogation, consultation, whatever firm, eventually we'll have a team of people who are specializing in various areas of nonverbal communication to help push this research and make it happen. So down the road, I'm sure that I'll be able to use the channel here to reach out to some of you who are passionate about this and maybe have education in it to add to the team that is going to be the Observe research side or the interview side or whatever, if that makes sense. So great input, great comment, and I hope to be able to answer some people's questions centered around that. Thank you. Let's see here, skipping on down to Anna Tankard. Thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. What are your go-to books for body language and things of that nature? I have a few. I have a lot of them listed behind me. So the one that I suggest everybody just start with, just because it's such an excellent start book, is the What Everybody Is Saying by Joe Navarro. He's an ex-FBI agent, but he didn't learn. This is a fun thing that I had a lot of issues with. People who use their status of they worked with the FBI, so they have body language training, or they worked with the military, so they have body language training. It's not necessarily always so connected that way, because, for instance, Joe Navarro, who is one of the leading experts on nonverbal communication in the world right now, he learned his body language reading well before he went into the FBI. It was built out of necessity. And then he went to the FBI, but the FBI is a good clickbaity thing to be able to have. Saying that you're from the FBI or you've worked with the FBI is great. But there are certain systems that you have to work through in nonverbal communication that don't rely on a title from somewhere like that. So even though he uses it on his book, don't pay attention too much to it because it's not important. What's important is that he spent the time and the effort and the study and the research to be able to establish these things, and then he was able to implement them better in the FBI. But he is a fantastic person to be able to start with. So read his book to begin with. If you want to be able to start reading some things for faces, if you want to understand how a person's face will emote, anything by Paul Ekman is great. Up there we have Emotions Revealed. That's a really good one to be able to work with, centered around the study of Paul Ekman, and along with that is Telling Lies, also by Paul Ekman, all centered around the face. The face is a very emotive portion of the body, and that's where you'll see a lot of micro, mini, and partial expressions play out is on the face. Joe Navarro handles the body, the rest of it. So you can see gestures from the hands and the feet and so on and so forth. That's where that's stored. I would suggest what everybody is saying, and then also the dictionary of body language that he has as well. A fantastic book. It's not out here because the cover, I took the cover off and I didn't like it too much, but the definitive book of body language by Alan and Barbara Pease is also a really fantastic read. It's not as in-depth as I would like it to be, but if you wanted to be able to just get something to maybe whet your appetite in regards to it, that would be a good one to do. But I hope that makes sense. I appreciate that, and those are my suggested reading books. And I will be making a video that answers everybody's top questions for me. This is one of them, and that will be coming out sometime or another. But thank you again. All right, here from ibagel.com too. Again, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Favorite food? That's a really good question for me. I cannot, little fun fact here, I can't smell. I was born without the ability to smell, and I never will be able to. So food and the tasting thereof is vastly different for me. From what I understand, since I have nothing to compare it to, I went into a specialist and they were like, your ability to taste has to be similar to what an average person's would if they had a terrible cold and they were unable to taste anything during that cold. So if you had a really bad cold and what you feel like tastes nasty, that's apparently how it tastes for me all the time. I don't know any different, so I don't care. But that being said, the reason that I brought that up is because my food choices are based off of texture, not so much off of flavor. It's texture and then flavor, not flavor and then texture. So for instance, I like McDonald's burgers a lot more than I like homemade burgers because the texture is different. That being said, I've also found this all-natural meat-free version that I like that doesn't bother my wife's stomach, and it has a fantastic texture. So that's great. But my all-time favorite go-to food across all of my life has always been pasta in some form or another. I love the textures of elbow pasta and certain pasta. I don't remember the name of it, but it's got a lot of the ridges or something like that. Those types of pastas have really cool textures to me, so they have been my go-to throughout all of my life, be it with cheese, be it with soy sauce. I put soy sauce on my pasta, which I know is weird, but it's a good texture thing. Leave me alone. Or if I just have to go with like butter, which is kind of boring to me because I can't really taste the butter. But yeah, pasta's my go-to. Great question. Thank you again. Once again, one that I don't often answer. So there we go. Let's see here. From Romeo, thank you for your donation. Hello from France. Love your channel. I appreciate your donation. I hope that things are going well in France, and I'm glad you like the channel. I hope to be able to be visiting France sometime this year. Would be really nice. I would love to be able to get there. My last name is Portenier or Portenier, which is French from its base, but I've never been to France, so I feel like I should be, just out of necessity, right? Not just because I really want to travel. Anyway, loves to be cold. Thank you for the donation and the little dog. Yeah, it's a cute little dog. Thank you for that. And if you do love to be cold, I suggest anywhere north. I know that's groundbreaking. So just here for everybody who's just looking for those really big words of wisdom. If you go north, it gets cold. All right, moving on to the next one here from Louise, I believe, Mooney. Thank you for your donation. I really greatly appreciate it. I know when I speak of trauma, I do a creepy smile, but no clue why. I think from your videos, it's disingenuous. I don't want people to ask further, but I don't want more conversations. Am I just not ready? So the smile, don't worry too much about. Smiling, while people oftentimes attribute it to joy, and it is, that's part of one of the universal expressions of joy is smiling. Even people who are blind and have never seen another person face, they smile when they're happy, so on and so forth. But that's not the only area that a smile applies. One of them can be in relation to nerves and also dealing with trauma. A nervous smile, an agitated smile, so on and so forth, that can be done. Also a coping smile. So don't worry about your smile. If people are bothered by it, that's kind of their problem. It's whatever you have to do to be able to be psychologically okay. And if smiling is what your body naturally does, then go ahead, have at it. Now, if you want to not have people ask questions, because inevitably somebody's going to ask a question, then you have to try to consciously control what your body does. And that's difficult to do, especially because a lot of what we do is involuntary. It's subconscious. We're not able to stop it in any form or fashion. But the smile that you're speaking of is not uncommon at all. Many, many people have that. Some people that you would recognize the name of would be Johnny Depp. He does that when he's recollecting or speaking of things that are traumatic. He has a smile that he uses. Burke Ramsey from the Ramsey case is another person who has that coping smile, that agitation smile, that nervous smile as well. And it can also be trained as well. People can train to have that smile, so on and so forth. So don't worry about it too much. I hope that answers your comment or addresses your comment okay. I do appreciate your donation, and I hope that you can move forward confidently, smiling whenever. Just don't even worry about it, because why? It's not. I wouldn't worry about what people think of you too much, because it can be very, very stressful to be worried all the time. But I hope you're at least encouraged by it, because I have some odd nonverbal tics that I handle with stress as well, or trauma, or anything that is negative emotionally. And so you're not alone on that front. But smile away. I hope that makes sense. From Maria Hernandez, thank you for the donation. I greatly appreciate it. Does it come second nature to you when you meet / get to know people, their baseline, and if so, how do you deal with an internal knowledge of something and the situation at hand? Yes, to an extent, it does come fairly second nature. It's usually within the first 10 minutes that I get an idea of to what their baseline is. And this is done not consciously by me. I rarely try to read, like if I'm meeting somebody that I'd like to consider to be a friend, I don't really mess around too much with baselines. I would rather navigate the friendship naturally. If it's in a professional setting, say I am having to interview with someone or for someone, or anything that's centered around the professional realm, I'll 100% rely on it immediately. And once again, within about the first 5 to 10 minutes, have an idea of it. It gives me more confidence is one of the biggest things, because like I've mentioned earlier, I struggle with social anxiety, specifically centered around phone calls, which is weird. But the ability to observe and take note of things and have that understanding kind of tucked away to rely on is a big confidence booster. And it helped me overcome a lot of my difficulties, which I know that it's helped other people in the past. And I've tried to help coach people to get to that point as well, because it's very effective. And just having that little nugget of knowledge about the person that you're speaking to, and that sense of control over that aspect of it, really does help ground during a social anxiety situation. So it is helpful for me. And other than that, I really don't focus on it too much unless it's part of a job that I'm working on. It does come second nature to an extent, but I can ignore it if I need to. It's more difficult for me to ignore negative tells than it is for me to ignore positive ones. So if I see a whole cluster of things that would be interpreted as negative, anger, sadness, so on and so forth, that's what I mean by negative in this realm. If I see that, then that's harder for me to ignore, because then I want to know why is it happening. But it can be done. 100% can be just ignored. And I do oftentimes, just to maintain a semblance of normality, because why not? Why not still have that kind of relaxed feel for the world? I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Again, from the Riot, thank you so much again for the donation. I appreciate it. How are you doing? You doing okay? Or remember to take care of yourself and your mental health. Hope Mrs. Observe is doing well as well. I am doing okay. I'm tired a lot. I do a lot of work. Just constantly, I'm either researching or I'm preparing for a video or both. And it's just, there's a lot that's going on. I know that I'm just sprinting towards burning out, and I'm finding out ways to be able to alleviate and prolong that as best as I can. I love what I do, but I put in just so many hours to do it. So that's difficult, but I kind of have to right now. And I've got an idea as to where it's going, so I'm not going to lose control of it. But I do well. I manage it with having some periodic days off here and there to be like, you know what, I'm just going to take today to unwind and not worry about anything related to business stuff on any level or research or anything. The other day, my wife and I got to sit down and paint for the entire day. And it was really, really nice. Really appreciated it. I did not like the painting when it turned out, but I got to have a very relaxing day just doing that. So I prioritize having that, making sure that I take care of my mental health. She's doing quite well. She has just medical stuff that pops up regularly, which we've always dealt with, and we're trying to figure out ways to work around it. So that can be very exhausting for her. So a lot of my extra energy that I have after work is spent on making sure that her and I are doing okay and just living life well enough, if you know what I mean. So I appreciate the question. That's as honest as I can actually be with that response. Yeah, that's just how it ends up going. Thank you again for the donation, by the way. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more and hope I don't lose track of everything because that happens a lot. I think, hold on. Here we go. Caught back up from the Scottish Kitty again. Thank you so much. I'm very tactile with my sensory issues, so texture is a huge thing for me too. And food. Good to have another person who relies on texture in food. Yeah, I have a wide variety of texture-based difficulties with certain things, touching my skin, foods, so on and so forth. Like I have some difficulties with it too, so I can relate to you on a very deep level. But thank you again for the donation. From AL3891, again, thank you again for the donation. YouTube/SEO, don't favor long titles, especially with similar starts. Just put the body, blah, reacts at the end is all I'm saying. Just try to help. That's a good idea. I might be able to start doing that. And no, I'm so frustrated with what qualifies on SEO, what doesn't, so on and so forth. So I've been using the same one over and over and over again in that light because it's worked again and again and again, and people can kind of understand it. But I might be switching it around. That is a good idea to move the priority of it up to the front and then have the body language reading or reacts or whatever at the end of it. Just SEO based would make sense. So good point on that. I appreciate that. Thank you. From Allison Cook, thank you for your donation. Would you be able to read someone who speaks a foreign language? Love your channel, by the way. Yes, but it depends on the culture that they came from. I would like to have more experience with cultures across the world because there are definite cultural differences in nonverbal communication, and that would really depend. So I could maybe stray into predominantly English-speaking countries because a lot of Western influence comes into there, so I could rely on some of my repertoire from that. But I can, but I have to strip it back a fair bit to some of the generalities of it. And then if I can establish a baseline, perhaps if I could use it in a person who could interpret their actual words for me so I can have some context as to what they're referring to, that would be really, really nice. But yes, it can be done and I can do it. It's just a little bit more difficult, especially as the culture strays further and further and further from what I'm personally used to. That's just a limitation of mine. If I were a better analyst, it would be something that I would be able to better do. And I hope to be able to push myself in that area a lot more here soon, especially now that I have my vaccine and I'm able to leave my house. So big plans on that front, but excellent, excellent question. Thank you so much. Let's see here from Sarah Stenger, I believe. My partner and I love your channel and your blunt, no-nonsense commentary. Thank you. What is your take on studying nonverbals on serial killers? Well, first, I'm glad y'all like my channel. I put some work into it, so I hope it pays off a little bit. And I try to keep my commentary straightforward because, I don't know, I'm not here to really please anybody. I'm just here to say what I see. So also, just so you know, if you ever have the question, was I paid off to make a video? The answer is always no. I'm nowhere near popular enough, nor would I take a bribe to do a read on somebody. I care too much about nonverbal communication to be bribed to read somebody in a certain way. I just cannot do it. I can't take myself to do something like that. So I'm here just to say exactly what I see, and sometimes that doesn't go well, but sometimes it does. So I'm glad that in this case it went okay. And then studying nonverbals on serial killers. That's a series that I'm going to have coming up here. I want to go through starting with some of the earliest serial killer footage that we can find from various ones and make a log of serial killers and their nonverbal communication, because it would be a bingeable, interesting series to be able to watch one after another and learn a lot about how serial killers display non-verbally. Perhaps there's similarities, perhaps there's not, perhaps they all have a common thread, so on and so forth. If you think of the show Mind Hunter, that would be a really good comparison to what I'd like to do non-verbally. Instead of just psychologically, deal with it non-verbally. I hope that makes sense. That's an excellent question, and you will be, I promise you, you will be seeing content centered around that coming out here, hopefully within the next year. Hard for me to say for sure because stuff is always changing for me, but hopefully within the next year. Great question, and thank you again for the donation, by the way. From Maria Hernandez, thank you. I really appreciate the donation. Just have to say this, basically you're a vibe ready specialist. A vibe ready specialist. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm gonna take this off. I'm getting a little warm, so sorry if you were hoping that the hair was gonna stay, but I'm just a little too roasty toasty. I appreciate it. I'm glad that I qualify as a vibe ready specialist in your eyes. So thank you so much. And thank you for the donation. I really do appreciate it. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and frolic on down here. I think here we are from Tanana Bread again. Thank you. I appreciate it. And save your money. No question. Just thanks for all the knowledge. Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. Save your money. Okay, go buy yourself like a really nice thing from the dollar store, or 25 nice things from the dollar store. But thank you. I appreciate the donation very much. From Ashley Shannon. Hi, and thank you for your donation. When doing analysis, do you find raw footage potentially bad quality or better quality prepared interview video more reliable, or better quality prepared interview video? Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not so much okay, so quality of the footage obviously has a lot to do with it. It's very difficult for me to be able to do a read on somebody's face if it's like a 144p video that it's just a pile of pixels and you can't really tell. It's very, very hard to be able to see the small like flutterings that would happen maybe around the eyes or the nose that would be telling. So quality is important, but what's almost as important, if not more important, is the time span between whatever is being discussed and the actual discussion, the actual interview. So if it's a crime, I try to find the earliest footage from the night of that crime. So if there was a crime that happened, I want the one that was recorded that night or the day after or as soon as I can, because that means that the emotions are more raw and the person has had less time to prepare for it. If they've prepared and prepared and prepared and prepared, every single hour that they spend preparing makes it more difficult for me to be able to see because they've prepared. But if it's less time, more accurate read. So that's my priority during this. As far as like the raw or the unedited, it can be nice because sometimes, especially if I can land a lucky time and see, like say there's a news interview and I can find the raw files of that, to where they haven't cut it for commercials and all that, then sometimes there's more telling stuff outside of that. Here, excuse me. Woof. So sometimes that can play out. And if that's the case, I really do appreciate that. And that is oftentimes more telling. But really, the time in between incident and talking times is the most important part. And that goes across everything, not just crimes. So thank you for the question. Great question, by the way. Let's scooch on down here. I want to make sure that I don't miss anybody. From Jesse Arcana, thank you again for the donation. I appreciate it. Have there been any instances where your skill has helped you personally in a sketchy situation with sketchy people? I tend to avoid sketchy situations, but there are almost no, I have yet to come into a situation that's like, say, tense, that I haven't been able to walk down based off of what I can see and talking them down from it. Let's say way back in the day, back earlier on, when I was studying nonverbal communication, because for those of you who don't know, I've been teaching it for around 7 to 8 years, and I've been studying it for, I think it's 11 to 12 years now. But early on in that, before I was teaching it, but while I was still studying it, I used to just work, I worked a job at Walmart, which was oh so joyous, just like your classic college, high school kind of job. I didn't have any intentions of sticking around or anything like that, but I had to interact often with very upset people, and oftentimes they would be very verbally upset, bordering on physically upset because of just customer service. And being able to read off of their nonverbal tells to see, are they escalating or are they de-escalating the situation themselves, would help me navigate what I was going to say next, how to walk them down from that based off of what I was seeing. If I saw them starting to, like, say I saw their ear starting to flush or their face starting to flush slightly, or I could see their fingers twitching, which fingers twitching is common in people who are about to do something very aggravated or aggravating. And so if I would see that, then being able to address and try to find a same page immediately. And then as soon as that happens, walk them down from there, make sure they're heard, so on and so forth. So it has come into play quite often in those sorts of situations. Outside of work, things like that, I don't often get into altercations on any level, especially ones that will be physical. But outside of the nonverbal stuff, I've taken, I don't know, like 8 years of martial arts, so I don't get too stressed in those situations either. So that helps me. I think that calmness also plays a part fairly well. But I'm okay at talking people down. That's the biggest thing. I hope that answers your question. Thank you again for the donation, by the way. From Carpe Nocturnus, thank you for your donation, and very cool name. Do you think you'll cover Ted Bundy in the serial killer series? Absolutely. He is on the list for sure. He's one of the big ones that a lot of people have requested me look at, and I looked at a while ago on the channel, not to the amount that I would like to, but yeah. Best real life body analyzing story you've got. Not so much the one that I've got, but what I'm allowed to say. Here, this wouldn't be the best one that I have, but it's one that I can say. Applying for a job, once again, early on, I was able to use body language stuff, and based off of mirroring and understanding nonverbal tells from the person that I was interviewing with, more or less, this sounds so just not nice. I more or less manipulated them throughout the rest of the interview to giving me the job by using nonverbal signals and mirroring off of those and verbal patterning based off of what they have to be able to get myself wedged into a job that I didn't have full credentials for by any means, but just an understanding of that. It was very fun. I really appreciated it. It got me into a job that I needed to get into. But that would be the one that I would like to be able to just tell, because a lot of the stuff that I work for, if it's consulting for people or law enforcement or anything along those lines, there are confidentialities that I just don't want to mess with. I'm sure I could say some things, but I'd rather steer clear of it completely so that I'm safe on speaking on stuff. Hope that makes sense. Appreciate it. And thank you for the donation again, by the way. From Daniel Voles, I believe. As a person diagnosed with PPD, paranoid personality disorder, I love your videos because it helps me understand why I am able to naturally read people. I'm glad that you're able to actually catch on to that. And some people have a higher proclivity to understanding nonverbal communication than others. And interestingly enough, a lot of the times women are actually able to pick up on the nuances of it far more easily than men are, and that isn't always the case. And there are very, very, very many exclusions for that. And what's the word that I'm looking for? I'll just say exclusions. I'll just keep with that. But yeah, I'm really glad that it's helps you see why you can do that. And I think that a lot of the content that I make helps people understand why they understand people. Because a lot of people, you can pick up on everything that I'm saying, but you might not be aware as to why you know X, Y, Z. And that's one of the big goals of the channel, is to be able to see or to show you why that happens. All right. From Kairu988, thank you for your donation. Have you ever done a read on a person with ADHD with emotional dysregulation, and how do you overcome those complications? It gets a little bit more difficult because in certain neurotypes, more active baselines become more and more common. So fidgeting, high anxiety, or high stress tells that would be normally high anxiety and high stress tells become part of a baseline. But the more active a baseline becomes, the harder and harder and harder it is to read, because the spikes from it become less noticeable. So for instance, a person who, say, fidgets a lot every way, they have their legs bouncing, they fidget with their clothing, they might tap a lot, do all sorts of different fidgeting things. That could be part of their baseline. But because they already are so active, it's hard to be able to be like, oh, I saw a spike from that, because it's already spiking a lot. In those cases, negative spikes would be more of a large tell for me. But it does get hairy. It really does get pretty hairy to be able to read. So with that, it really would boil down to time for me, time being able to understand who I'm working with, talk to them more, or see footage of them interacting on more areas and more cases, because more or less people will act and react similarly to times that they have acted and reacted to similar situations. And so as I can continue to build this character sketch non-verbally of them, regardless of how they normally act, it's how they act in regards to certain stimulants. So say, for instance, I have somebody who has just the highest energy baseline. They're constantly moving. Well, I can watch them in situations where I know, for instance, they've lied, or I know that they're under stress, or I know that they're sad. And if I could go through and I could see how they're acting in each of these individual styles, well, then later on, when I'm in an area where it's brand new, I can see if I can pick up on any of those patterns. Once again, this isn't foolproof, because we still don't understand the human mind enough for it to be foolproof, and everybody has tics. Even though you might act a certain way at a certain time, you could act differently at a different time, even though it's a similar search or a similar situation. So there are complications, but that would be my method behind it. And the one that I really try to hammer home here on the channel is centered around that as well. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question, and thank you again for the donation. Let's see here. Just so y'all know, I'm going to be stopping this stream at the end of the hour. So whatever time it is in your area of the world, it will be at the turnover of the hour here. So for me, it's going to be 7 o'clock. You can fill in the blank as to when it will be for you. Let's see here. From M. Crimson Kitty. Thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate it. Is it more difficult to read people that flush easily? Like during the H&M interview, I notice H flushing the same way if I'm stressed even a little. Yes, but once again, if you're able to establish that baseline, it's something that you can compensate for. The flushing would just be a part of the baseline. And in some ways, it can be more telling. So for instance, for you, if I saw that you flushed every time you were even lightly stressed, well, that's a really, really good tell to be able to notice later on. So if you are fine and you look fine and your skin is the normal pigment, but then something happens and you flush and I don't see if anything happens, that means that something stressful has triggered your psychological state, be it external or internal. And that's something that a lot of people also don't take into account, which I tried to take into account, and it's difficult because nobody's privy to anybody's thoughts, is that your body will also react to whatever's stressing you thought-wise. It doesn't always have to be external. So say, for instance, you're talking to somebody and then they grimace. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that you said or that they saw or you can see. It could just be like oh, I forgot to do XYZ. And this can actually happen often with people who have difficulty concentrating in conversation, so on and so forth, that their emotive states will be based off of their psychological processing, not off of just external stimulus. So that makes it really nuanced and difficult to work with. And that's where context comes into play. And you have to establish that baseline. And it's there's a lot of things that you have to juggle, more or less. So yes, that can make things more difficult, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Thank you again for the donation, by the way. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I'm up on the right ones here. From Ellie Lindloff, thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. And my in-laws are Russian, and my mother-in-law doesn't speak English well, but we can communicate because we can read each other's body language. I would be super interested in research with different cultures. I'm glad that this would be beneficial because once again, I'm here not only to maybe be entertaining for you, but I would love to be beneficial as well. I would love to make things like body language reading, nonverbal communication reading, entertaining enough that people want to get into it. They want to understand more about it. Because if I can get that to happen, then maybe we can start pushing this a little bit further. Because right now, like I said, it's so small. It's so restricted as to like assets that you can find, as to courses that you can find, so on and so forth, that it's hard to be able to push. Like if there's not people to push, you can't really push. So that's the goal here. And so I'm glad that the channel is helping you out, and hopefully more and more things will be able to start coming out to help with things like that. A lot of the difficulties with me and the research side of things is that funding is hard to come by. And then the last year, you couldn't really go anywhere anyways. And I'm not a huge fan of trying to do everything digitally. A lot of the nuances and smaller movements of the face are lost over cheap webcams. But I'm glad it helped you. I'm really glad. And thank you again for the donation. And I'm glad that body language helps your everyday life as well. That's very nice. All right. From Kim Nicole Rush, thank you again for the donation. I've always been interested in body language, nonverbal communication, but there's not a lot in the way of courses, etc. Your channel helps with the basic stuff. Thank you. Love your channel from Australia. Thank you. And I so badly want to tell you about this thing that's coming up here, and I can't yet. But for you, Kim, and many other people that are really interested in this stuff, the partnership that I'm having come out here soon is geared directly towards people like you. That's all I can say. So just stay tuned for it. And I'm very, very excited for it. Just very excited. But thank you again for the donation, by the way. All right, from Melissa Maza. Hi, after finding your channel, excuse me. Oof, man. Hi, after finding your channel and doing research on my own, I find myself struggling not to pay too much attention to people's tics or expressions that seem off. Do you have any tips for beginners? So yes, the issue that I ran into when I first started this is that there's a lot. There's a lot to start taking in, and things that are more active are distracting. And I think that's where this strays into, is that once you start studying this, you will start picking up on everybody's body language around you because it's new, it's fresh, it's engaging for you. And then you realize that everybody is constantly displaying something with their emotions, and it becomes overwhelming. So your brain, being hardwired the way it is, will pick up on the things that are most dynamic, the most movement, or the most different from everything else, because we search for things like that. And it gets extremely difficult to break that habit. Part of what I rely on for myself is actively doing what I call, at least, an ebb and flow observation style, to where I will see something that's extremely eye-catching. Say somebody really has like a strong shoulder shrug that they use just all the time, and I just can't help but notice it. What I'll do is I will move it. I will concentrate in on it, focus on it, see what it is, how it's moving, maybe focus on what happens around it in the verbiage that they're using. Is there anything? And then I will allow my attention to kind of wash back out. That would be the ebbing and flowing side of things. Wash back out and see what everything else in the body is doing, just generally, not focusing on details, not focusing on like how are the eyes moving, how are the eyebrows moving, but more so taking a step back and seeing what the whole body is doing, relying on peripheral, so on and so forth to see. And then as something else pops up, go ahead and wash back in to examine that, see what it does, see how it plays out, and then do that again. And just repeat that over and over and over again. And it allows you to be able to gather all of the information that you need about them without really straining your brain too excessively. It's hard to be able to get this technique down, but it is really, really effective. And as you continue to practice that kind of mindset of things, you can broaden it out. Instead of it just being like one person, you can broaden it out to a group of people and so on and so forth, to where you can keep track a little bit better of more people and not be as distracted by things like overt energized tics, for instance. I hope that makes sense. I hope that does help you out a little bit on it. It's what helped me when I was trying to figure it out. No books really taught me that or anything along those lines. That was just something that I had to establish throughout trial and error until I got to the point where I am now. So I hope that makes sense. And practicing will 100% make it easier for you. But great question, really great question. From the Riot, again, thank you. Again, how did you and Mrs. Observe meet? Only if you're comfortable sharing, obviously. Yeah, I'll do a real quick synopsis. I was living in Bozeman, Montana here, and I was friends with her brother for a while. And him and I were supposed to meet up at a coffee shop just to like hang out. I had a lot more time on my hands, and hangout things were something that I was able to do often. So I said, hey, would you like to be able to go and do this? Would you like to go hang out at the coffee shop? And he was like, sure. That'll be great. And that was all that was said. And so the day comes, and I had gone to a bakery and bought myself some donuts. I had bought enough for him to maybe have one as well, but they were for me because I was being selfish with my donuts. And on the way there, he was like, hey, I'm going to bring my sister as well. Is that okay? And in my mind, I had no interest in meeting new people. I am not an extroverted person. I like my very small group of friends, and more people is not often welcomed. So I was a little irritated that he just said, hey, you know, she's going to be there. And so I got there, showed up, and I saw his sister and had a little bit of a change of heart there. We had a very quick spark immediately. And I decided that I was going to be sweet and offer one of my donuts to her, because that's the nice thing to do. And it would seem really weird if I had offered him donuts and me donuts and not her. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be nice. And there was a donut that I had picked out, which was a chocolate donut that was covered in crushed peanuts. And I was very excited for it because I usually like maple with crushed peanuts, but they didn't have it. So chocolate with crushed peanuts was fine. So I had that one kind of nestled off to the side for me to eat. And there was only one. There was only one in the bakery. There was only one in the box that I had. And sure enough, that was the only one that she grabbed. And the rest of them were like plain glazed. And so that was the introduction that I had to her. Time went on. She was also dating another guy. And her and I just kind of developed a good friendship. And that was really nice. Like, it was good to be able to just be friends. I had more or less decided that I was going to take a break from being in a relationship for a while, as one usually does right before a relationship. So time went on, and she ended up eventually breaking off the relationship she was in, and we started dating, and then we got engaged, I think a couple years later, and then got married, and we've been married now for almost 4 years. And it's been really, really nice. We've done a lot of growing. We're very different people from when we started, just vastly different life all the way around. And we've managed to be able to not grow apart, even though all of these different things have happened. And it's been really nice to see. Really, really nice. So all in all, that's that side of things. Just a second here. I got email. Haha, very cool. So yeah, that's the story. The very abbreviated, like Sparks Notes version of the story. I hope you enjoyed. From Sarita Valdez, thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. Let's get back to where I was here. From Rachel, thank you for your donation. And I love your channel, but I've never watched a live stream of yours before. This is fun. Keep up the awesome work. I'm glad that you've made a live stream finally. I keep them pretty covert. I don't know. Sometimes I'll announce it if it's going to be like a big live stream. But for things like this, I like to kind of keep it under the notice. I don't know what I was going to try to say there. I try to keep it under wraps a little bit so that you can have a little bit more of a close-knit conversational style interaction instead of me just being overwhelmed by comments. So thank you. I'm glad you've made it. I'm glad you like the channel, and thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. From Kristen Borglum, I'm sure. Thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. And any tips on how to be more self-aware / controlled with your own body language? My thing that worked for me and what has worked for people that I've coached in the past on this, just a little brief, there's a lot of work, just so you know, that can go into this. But the brief thing that I've realized is that you need to understand what your body is saying before you can start controlling it. So doing a lot of research for what body language is presenting, how it presents, and how it plays out, like what your psychological state is as opposed to your physiological state and how they interact. That's important to know. Because if you don't know that, then it doesn't matter if you pay attention to your own body language because you still won't fully understand that. Fun thing is that your body language can betray what you're feeling before you can even be aware of it at times. People will betray something that their subconscious has already leaked, and then a little bit later, their conscious is like, here it is. That can happen, and it's usually in the micros of the face that you can most often see that. But you have to know what you're seeing before you start really seeing it. After you have that knowledge base, it is really just a matter of constantly introspecting, which isn't healthy, to be fair. Excuse me. I had Subway earlier, and it's just an adventure for me right now. So constant introspection can be pretty limiting and damaging in and of itself, but it does take a fair bit of it to be able to notice, okay, so right now I am acting in a certain way and I feel this way. Once I've made that connection, try to find a pattern of it. It's quite literally establishing your own baseline to understand yourself better. And as you continue on, then eventually, once you understand yourself fully, or more at least, you can start augmenting various areas of it. So for instance, when I have a certain smile, if I'm like smiling for a camera, or even in regular everyday to day life where I'm not just like hilariously laughing at something, I would have what would be considered a contempt smile. That's something that I trained into my repertoire a while ago. It's not meant to be contempt, but it could be read as that for somebody who doesn't know my baseline. And so you can start doing things like that to be able to augment how you present yourself. And you can do that to an extent beforehand as well. And that will help you fall into place with that, because there has been research that, for instance, if a person smiles all day, they have a much better day at the end of the day via recap than if they frowned all day. And this was done intentionally for various people groups. And so that means that your physical state, while you can control it, can control your mental state. I hope this is making sense without getting too muddy or difficult to understand. But that would be more or less my suggestions on how to go through all of that. I hope that makes sense. Sorry for the very convoluted answer on that. And thank you for the donation again, by the way. I'm going to scroll down here to, once again, Sarita Valdez. You're going to have a Netflix show or something soon. It's funny that you mentioned that. I am going to buy a camera here that's Netflix approved, because eventually I would like to be able to fully flesh this out, but I want to be able to have more flexibility before I do that. Right now, I'm pretty happy to keep it on just YouTube for now, but eventually, yeah, you should be able to expect seeing a show centered around Observe or something like that on Netflix from me. Be a lot of fun. Definitely something that I have in the planning. So good thought on that front. And thank you for the support. I really do appreciate it. Let's see here. Scrolling on down here to Ash. Oh, hold on. It jumped for me. I have to. Ashley Shannon, thank you again. Do you have feelings about keeping in the up and up on YouTube drama that you typically wouldn't be without this channel, assuming you wouldn't. It gets exhausting sometimes for me because I am not the type of person that really likes to dive deep into drama on any front. Oftentimes I get frustrated by it, and that sometimes will leak out in videos that I'll do to where if I'm just fed up with, oftentimes it's the pithiness of a lot of it, just very piddly things, then I get fed up. But to temper that, and it does quite well, since I really do love the research and the exercise of nonverbal communication reading and everything that goes into that, it balances it. So it makes it to where it's doable for me. So that's kind of the game that I just have to play, and I'm happy to play it because it allows me flexibility. I like to be able to dedicate my time into research that I can also count as a job, which is just a good thing as well. So all the way around, I do love it, and I will continue to do it for as long as I possibly can, but it can be exhausting, 100%. I don't know if that answers your question, but that is my feelings on it. Those are my feelings on it. So thank you. Thank you again for the donation, by the way. All right. From ibagel.com to, again, thank you so much for the donation. My goodness, I can buy so many donuts now. You just have no idea. And they are amazing. I'm shocked. I am being able to handle eating less and less sugar at a time. I think it's because I just haven't had it as often. Back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I used to be able to eat a fair bit more sugar, but that was also when I was in Bozeman. And in Bozeman, there was this little tiny mom and pop, it just so small, bakery that specialized in donuts. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I cannot remember the name of it to save my life, but the donuts there were all handmade. They were all made every day, fresh, and sold out every day because they were so good. And it was just like a little slice of like the classic storybook style bakery. The owner of it was like this very jovial, like elderly-ish man with a big mustache, and he was a bigger, heavier set guy and just always happy. And it was just perfect. Really, really loved that donut shop. And I don't get to go often anymore because I don't live in that city anymore. But yes, donuts are indeed amazing. So, and thank you again so much for those donations. They're insane. So thank you. From Baked Buddhist, thank you for your donation. Would you ever be comfortable giving us a tattoo tour at some point? Yeah, I will be giving you a tattoo tour at some point and telling you about my thought process behind it, and even talking about ones that I have planned to get as well, because I have multiple and I have no problem telling about them. So yes, that will be coming up. Actually, I'm going to be really honest. It will be coming up at my 500,000 subscriber milestone. That's my video, is going to be talking about my tattoos. Big spoiler alert. So sorry. Those of you who are here, you get to know. So, but thank you for your donation. I really appreciate it. All right. From Sarah Stinger again. Thank you again, by the way. Thanks for your in-depth answer. Looking forward to seeing what you come up with. If you're ever in Philly, I'd be happy to play a mini tour guide. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope to be able to travel around a lot. And as I do travel, if it's not for like personal things, because I got to be honest, my wife and I haven't gone on a vacation together ever. Actually, since we got married, our honeymoon was our only vacation that we've had by ourselves together. And so we want to be able to try to change that, obviously, for obvious reasons. But if I'm going places for like work, if I am speaking at an event or something like that, then I will probably either tweet about it or post about it on YouTube or something like that, so that people in the area, if you show up, then I'm happy to say hi and hang out for a bit if I can. So thank you. And if I roll around to that area of the country, then yeah, I will let you know. Thank you again for the donation, by the way. All right, so I'm going to answer this one here from AS, and then I think I'm going to call it good from there. So let's see here. From AS, first, thank you for the donation. And you say here, I work as a chef, and I've noticed that my body language became less emotional for the last 10 or so years because of all of the angry Ramsay things, probably. Not a question, just a fact. It's true, yes. And as you continue to do a certain job more and more and more, it becomes less engaging to your brain, which this is just fun psychology talk, becomes less engaging to your brain, which then means that your body language is going to emote less in certain ways because your brain isn't firing on all cylinders, so to speak, because you've been doing it for years and years and years. So then that means that since your psychology isn't doing all of this activity, your physiology, your nonverbal communication will also not do near as much activity. So that is something that's quite common. I'm glad that you were able to pick it up and notice it. And then I appreciate the comment. Thank you for sending it in here. Okay, I lied. I'm doing one last one because ibagel.com once again donated just the most extreme amount. Thank you so much again. Favorite song. I love your channel and I'm just glad I was able to catch your stream. Please don't overwork yourself and please get some rest. First, I will do all of those things as best as I possibly can. Favorite song. Ooh. I have to say, I have the most strange selection of songs ever. Not ever. I know that everybody has weird songs that they listen to. But the difficulty is that I used to do a lot of music. I was homeless for a little bit. I didn't have a home for a bit. I lived out of my car. Didn't have a job, whatnot. And I made money and ate via playing music on the street. And it was a great time in my life. Very, very chaotic, but very good for building character and understanding myself a little bit more. During that time, I used to listen to a lot of folk music. So I would have been able to be like, I would say this song. That would be based off of what I always played. Now, I don't do that. And I listen to weird music it's not like eerie or anything. I'll just try to explain. Hold on. Let's see here. So I like certain types of folk music. I don't listen to it often anymore. If I'm playing drums, which I've played drums for around 15 years, I like drumming to rock music, but I don't often listen to rock music. If I'm studying for something, I'll listen to a lo-fi of any sort. And if I find one that's themed, I'll do that. And then if I'm just listening to music for the sake of listening to music, it varies. But one that I've listened to, oh man, one that I've listened to a lot is called The Hero of Rhyme by Starbomb. And it's a comedy song from some YouTubers that started a band centered around video game stuff. It's a nerdy song. It's not at all intellectual. And it's not even my normal style of music that I would listen to, but I think it's funny and it's a bop. And so I've listened to that most often. So right now I think that would be my classified as favorite song. If you go and watch that, leave a comment and let them know that Observe sent you there. It's very different music style all the way around. I actually listen to a lot of comedy-based music now. I don't know why, but centered around largely Danny Gonzalez, NSP, and Starbomb will be three of the main ones. Sprinkled in with Enya. I told you, it's very strange. Very strange, but fantastic question. Such a weird answer again. Once again, something that I never really get to address anymore. All right, that is where I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. Once again, don't forget about the merch. If you don't like it, don't worry about buying it, but it comes in blankets too, which is really cool. Just go check out the link. It's in the description of every video. And anything that you see helps the channel. Put a lot of time trying to think of something that would be wearable for everybody. So go check that out if you want, or don't. It's totally up to you. I hope you did enjoy this stream. I had a fantastic time just hanging out with you, especially on these little bit quieter ones where I can take more time to respond to questions and answers and all that. So thank you for being very polite. Thank you again to my wife for moderating, and I will be working through the mod applicants this week to be able to reach out to you and let you know kind of where the direction is going from there. I think I'll probably only appoint 5 or so right now. But as the channel grows, I will make sure that yours are on file if you don't make that first round. If you don't make the first round, it's nothing against you. It's just numbers. So I'm sorry if it offends you, so on and so forth. But without further ado, that is all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are. And I will see you in the next video or live stream. Cheers, guys.